This computer. Okay, so welcome everybody. Great to have you guys with us, and welcome in the Grace Online program, the Grace Online program, I guess. I'm joined today by a very special young man. His name is Stefan, wholeheartedly committed to his recovery, and we're going to be presenting or facilitating you through the first sort of lecture that's very important to get your recovery program on the way and to make things happen. So currently you're looking at a slideshow, and we'll just be presenting through the slideshow throughout. So obviously that's me, Kenneth, and my main mission in life is to help heal relationships damaged by compulsive sexual behavior. And that person on the right is Stefan. Stefan, would you like to introduce yourself?
All right, good day. My name is Stefan. I'm a specialist wellness counselor, and as Kenneth also mentioned here, I'm also part of this recovery journey, wholeheartedly committed to this journey of recovery. And yeah, looking forward to having this discussion, moving through these presentations and discussing these themes.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Stefan. So guys, I would like you to relax at this point in time. Maybe grab a notebook and a pen, draw that closer. And if you'd like to make any notes, you're more than welcome to do so. Actually, I would recommend that you do that because the best notes that you'll be receiving today are the notes that you make yourself. So feel free to make notes. If you've got any questions, jot them down because we will definitely be available in some sort of fashion after this recording to answer all questions and every question that you may have. So great. So the promise today, after this presentation, you will understand the link between men's pornography use and emotional regulation. Understanding this will help promote healthier relationships and self-awareness, allowing for more effective coping strategies and better overall emotional and mental well-being. So that is the promise today. And obviously the picture on the left says that we want to restore your relationship. We want your relationship to be the best that it can possibly be. Stefan, what do you think of this? What's this slide all about?
So for me, this slide signifies our, shall I say, growing process, the metamorphosis that we want to achieve throughout this specific set of presentations of, shall we say, lectures to a certain extent, where we want to go from a position of being emotionally overwhelmed to being in a place where we are emotionally regulated. And yeah, just like this slide here also says, in this specific presentation, we are aiming at gaining emotional resilience so that you can better handle difficult emotions, because we do all sit with difficult emotions and we need to be able to work through them. So yeah, that's going to be the main focus.
Here's a nice quote. It says, "Through the fires of chaos and struggle, a man can forge the steel of capacity, tempered and strengthened by the challenges he overcomes on his adventure to recovery." Now, I don't know about you, but this makes me excited. It's a call to adventure. It talks about the steel of capacity, tempered and strengthened. I mean, these are all things that we as men aspire to be like, to be able to go through the fires and chaos of struggle. I mean,
Yes.
I think that's what the definition of being a man is all about, isn't it?
No, I completely agree in the sense that, yeah, we all go through these kind of like, shall I say, fires of struggle, like they show here, that chaos. But through that chaos, if we have the right tools, if we work through the right process, we are able to forge a steel stronger than what it was before going through that fire. So yeah, no, I'm excited to go on this journey.
Awesome. Stefan, tell us about the bucket.
So yeah, the bucket is kind of like, shall I say, the ground foundation, shall I say, concept with regards to the set of presentations, as the bucket kind of like signifies our emotional capacity. As we go through the chaos and the fires of life, our own emotional capacity gets filled. And if we compare it to a bucket also has a set capacity. It can only hold so much water, can only hold so much until it overflows. And just like that with emotions, our own emotional capacity has a set limit. And it becomes very important to be able to regulate that limit, because if we go over the limits of our emotional capacity, that's when the acting out occurs, where we overflow, we don't know what to do. So we try almost like stamping all of those emotions back down through the acting out action. And how that acting out can look can depend from person to person. But yeah, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to go in a bit more detail through that as we go on with this specific presentation.
Guys, so
yeah,
yeah, go Stefan.
Yes, no. And as we also go through with emotional regulation, it's also needed to install a faucet. But yeah, well, what would you want to say about the faucet, Kenneth?
Yeah, so like Stefan said just now, this emotional capacity gets filled with positive and negative emotions to the space where it overflows. And every single person that I've ever spoken to in the last 25 years struggling with addiction has told me that they feel a sense of being overwhelmed constantly or consistently. They feel overwhelmed. And now we need to go and install a tap or a faucet or a pressure release valve, which is what this picture signifies. And the whole point of the tap is to open it and to regulate those positive and negative emotions, to let them out, and in the same sense deal with stuff and make our lives maybe less chaotic, or increase our capacity to be able to deal with certain things that may come across our path.
I wholeheartedly agree.
So, Stefan, emotional capacity is the first thing over there. That's the first concept. And there in the beginning, it says positive and negative. That's the plus and minus sign next to the one. Positive and negative emotions fill our capacity. Then we experience something called overwhelm. The overwhelm builds up to numbing. If I'm feeling overwhelmed, I need to escape my reality. And I do that via numbing. Numbing equals acting out. The next one is temporary relief and reduced capacity. And the fifth sort of escalation there is emotional regulation increases capacity. But we're going to be looking at each one of these points on the next few slides. So I've forgotten that I've got a video function, so I'll put my video on just quickly, yeah, in between the happy, sad face and the happy face. Life demands emotional strength. Life demands emotional strength. Positive and negative emotions take up extra capacity. It's like little bubbles that fall into that bucket. And every time something like a stone is thrown into the bucket, every time something falls in, it fills the bucket up, and eventually the bucket will overflow. So this step emphasizes that experiencing a range of emotions is the natural part of life, and it requires emotional strength to navigate these emotions. Some emotions can take up more space than others, but all of them have a cost in terms of emotional energy. Anything you'd like to add there, Stefan?
Yeah, no, for me, definitely, it's this idea of having resilience, because going through life, we need to have resilience to handle both, like you say, the positive and the negative emotions. It's not just negative emotions that leads to overwhelmness. You can almost kind of like see our emotional capacity as currency, or like you say here at the end of this slide, energy, and you only have a set amount of that. And if you keep investing all of those energies into the capacity, at some point it reaches a point where it's filled up, whether it's positive or negative. Either way, it will fill up.
Yeah. What happens then?
So yeah, if these emotions are not processed, like it says here, they can completely fill your emotional capacity and you become overwhelmed. So yeah, like I said, with regards to the bucket overflowing, it just gets too much. And I think how a person experiences being overwhelmed can differ a bit from person to person, but there's this kind of like idea that it is important to process the emotions so that we don't reach this state of being emotionally overwhelmed. And like it says here, if emotions are left unprocessed, they can build up over time and create that sense of being overwhelmed. So It's not just an immediate action that occurs. It's something that can build up. That bucket can be filled in bit by bit over a long period of time. It doesn't necessarily have to be once off. It can be over a long period of time, but nevertheless, a person reaches that point of being overwhelmed. And like it says here, this can lead to acting out in negative ways to release the build-up tension.
Negative ways, obviously referring to the unwanted behavior, which would include sexual acting out and all the different forms of sexual acting out. But it could also be escaping in something else like alcohol, drugs, some of the other process addictions like eating disorders, gambling, exercise, even lots of different ways to release the built-up tension in ways that normally will not increase my capacity. In fact, escaping usually diminishes my capacity. It has the opposite effect, the opposite thing that as what we would desire in the beginning. Step 3 says, when you are overwhelmed, acting out takes place, which suppresses your emotional capacity to create temporary relief. That's a mouthful. Let's just go through that again. When you are overwhelmed, acting out takes place. Acting out, referring to the unwanted behavior, which suppresses, so it pushes down all of the emotional capacity to create temporary relief. So when I push down, when all of these emotions are pushed in, that suppression creates temporary relief and capacity. Now everything's squished down into the bottom of my bucket, and at the same time, the capacity that's increased gives me capacity to deal with stuff in life, but that's just short-lived, isn't it?
Yeah.
So this step explains how acting out occurs as a result of feeling overwhelmed by emotions. Acting out is a coping mechanism that suppresses emotions. It's a coping mechanism that suppresses emotions, providing temporary relief. However, this relief is short-lived and comes at the long-term cost of a decrease in emotional capacity. So in essence, what happens, Stefan? Our bucket becomes smaller. Your bucket becomes smaller. Your ability to deal with things becomes smaller.
No, it is like that. And in the moment, it might not seem that way. In the moment when you get that short temporary relief, that little bit of relief, you feel like, okay, I have my capacity back. I can go out and do what I need to do, whatever life asks of you. But in the long term, and that's the thing, we don't necessarily see the long-term effect. But in the long term, that capacity actually decreases, even though in the moment it feels like it actually increases.
Yeah. Stefan, why do you think we chose this picture to add in with this step here?
So for me personally, it signifies how, to a certain extent, through our acting out behavior, we kind of like put a mask on. We kind of like get this feeling that I can kind of like feel a sense of relief, but it is a facsimile of relief. It's not the true, shall I say, expression of relief, of growth, of regulation. It is a false sense of regulation. And through our addictive behaviors, it's a very isolating experience. So we kind of like hide ourselves and from others. So we don kind of like these masks that kind of like hides away the kind of like the impact of our behavior in the moment. So that's how I see it.
You want to talk us through step 4?
No problem. So yeah, the emotions are only temporarily numbed, like we said. And in the long term, your emotional capacity decreases. This step explains that numbing emotions with acting out is only a short-term solution. So in the moment, you might feel like you're gaining the control back, but in truth, you're only slowly kind of like choking yourself, like this picture shows to a certain extent. It's slowly sucking away all your capacity and just grips you tighter and tighter. And yeah, your capacity decreases. And it just makes it all the more harder to handle those emotions.
Yeah. Capacity continues to decrease until one drop of positive or negative emotion completely overwhelms the person. So the bucket has become so small, essentially, that one drop even if the bucket's completely empty, one drop will overflow the capacity.
Mm.
This step shows that continually suppressing emotions with acting out can lead to a situation where even a small amount of positive or negative emotion can feel completely overwhelming. This guy's bursting, one drop. I think that flame there signifies a drop of negative emotion. It's like it's dropping in on him and he's just bursting, carrying, just collapsing under the weight of all of these emotional realities that he's facing. If the emotion, yeah, go for it, Stefan.
Oh, no. If the emotions can be processed and discharged, capacity will only recover, but may also increase. So yeah, this actually shows that it is important to process the emotions that we are experiencing, because through that processing, we not only work through the emotions we feel in the moment, we also work through some of those shall I say, the emotional sludge that has gunked up our capacity, the capacity in our buckets. It says here, if emotions can be processed, it can lead to an increase in emotional capacity, allowing you to handle future emotional challenges more effectively. So in truth, gaining back that capacity, emotions must be acknowledged and dealt with instead of being suppressed. So allowing ourselves to feel those emotions.
Excellent. John's story. I'm going to read a story for you guys just to relate. As a hardworking computer programmer, I constantly push myself to meet tight deadlines and complete challenging tasks. Despite my dedication, I always felt completely stressed out and overwhelmed, struggling to manage my emotions. My wife frequently complained that I was distant and unresponsive, and we would often argue over very small things. I knew I needed to improve, but I just couldn't shake the overwhelming feeling of stress and anxiety. When I watched a video presentation from Grace Online that discussed the impact of pornography addiction on emotional capacity, I found myself relating to the experiences shared in the video. The image of a chained and blindfolded man on one of the presentation slides particularly struck me. It perfectly captured my experience of feeling numb and unable to process my emotions, despite the temporary relief that acting out provided. The video made me reflect on my childhood and how I was often told to man up and not show any of my emotions. I realized that I had been suppressing my emotions for so long, for far too long actually, and that it became a habit. And I had never learned how to process my emotions in a healthy way. But the video also gave me hope. I began to see that change was possible. By acknowledging my lack of emotional capacity and working to improve it with the other guys on the program, and in particular in my recovery battle station, I could break free from the cycle of acting out and start to experience a real, lasting change. That's not just based on motivation or willpower, for that matter, but rather a true and permanent lifestyle change. Phenomenal story. So guys, listening to this video, if you haven't made a note yet, then you please need to make a note now. What is the recovery battle station? That's a question that you absolutely have to ask. Maybe that's a bit of a secret to be revealed at a later stage. I made a commitment to myself to start processing my emotions with the other guys, to do my best to talk to my wife about my struggles, and to seek help from the amazing guidance from the program. While it won't be an easy journey, I know that I'm on the right path towards healing and a brighter future if I decided to surrender to the process. Anything you want to comment on the story, John's story, or some of the images that we have there, Stefan? Anything
So I
coming
think
to mind?
to a certain extent, I think a lot of us can relate to John's story. In one way or another, we become or became overwhelmed, and how how certain areas of our lives have become so unmanageable that we needed an escape, a way to cope. But in doing so, we sowed some destruction in one form or another across our lives. So I think it just signifies the commonality that might be present in many of our journeys.
Excellent. What's happening here, Stefan?
Mm. So with this model, just getting kind of like a picture of how this can be captured into one single picture. So we all have an emotional capacity, which can go either of two ways. Either it can go towards being overwhelmed, to the red side there, and being overwhelmed reduces that capacity. And for me, that little diamond kind of like signifies one drop of emotion that just fills that entire capacity. But if we go the other way, moving back to the middle, going towards regulation, we can actually go towards increasing our emotional capacity, being able to handle more that life throws our way.
Excellent. So the metaphor of this whole slide is the bucket. It is a bucket that is overflowing, being too much, running over, and we need to install a faucet, which would be a topic for another conversation a little bit later. But bear in mind that my emotions go into a bucket, my emotional capacity, and if that starts to overrun, we are heading for troubles and the red light comes on. What is this here, Stefan?
So this just gives a bit of context as to where we are on this journey currently. So we're in the beginning of regulation of emotions, and it also is symbolized by, of course, the bucket here. So I think it really is the foundational steps that we usually need to take towards our recovery journey. It's that firm foundation onto which all the other steps are connected to.
Excellent. So guys, today you have a choice. Bearing in mind everything that you have learned up until now, what will you do with this information? Are you going to start working on your own emotional capacity, trying to increase it, enhance it, multiply it even? Or are you going to ignore these realities and keep on compressing your emotions? That choice is in your hands. There's a saying that says, I alone can do it, but I cannot do it alone. If you choose option B, then definitely look at the next video and decide to take the path less followed, the one to the right, hopefully, the one that's a bit more difficult, overgrown, more challenging, but absolutely more rewarding at the end of the day.
Right, so here we have a bit of a call to action. So here we want to allow each and every one of you to reflect on how you're feeling, but also to be challenged to dive straight into the work that needs to be done to move towards this new lifestyle change. So like it says here, grab a pen and paper and write down the things in your life that are currently taking up your emotional energy. What are the things that you can identify that really fills up your bucket? And then consider the emotions that come with these events. Which positive and negative emotions are filling your capacity? How do you name them? How do you identify them? And this can be a great way to gain clarity on what's really weighing on you and take the needed steps to address it. And throughout this process, and its process throughout all of the presentations, is to remember that taking care of our emotional well-being is important, and it's also okay to ask for help when we need it.
So I think to end this slide, I need to actually shout at the top of my lungs, on your feet, soldier. Are you going to be reporting for your battle station? You know, so if you don't know about the recovery battle stations, please do pop a message to me or Stefan immediately after the slide, because the challenge would be, this is a call to action, to take action, you do this stuff. But if you want to go into higher grade mode, the higher grade recovery mode, then I would like to challenge you to share your answers to these questions. Which positive and negative emotions are filling up your capacity, along with the stuff that's taking up your emotional energy, to share that in your recovery battle station. So thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to us. In the next episode, the next sort of episode, the next forthcoming attraction, it feels like, but in the next recording that me and Stefan is going to be I'm actually going to hand over control of the slides to Stefan. So Stefan will be taking charge, and we'll show you a bit of his videos. We only can show one video at a time. So let's see how that goes. Please join us in the next section of the video, and let's fully commit to our recovery adventure going forward from this point onwards. Thanks, guys. Thanks for listening to us. Have a great day. Looking forward to seeing you in the next video as soon as possible. Bye.
Thanks, and cheers, everyone.